So here I am watching the latest train wreck that is Anthem, and I remember how excited I was 2 years ago when Mass Effect Andromeda launched. Despite all the signs and the uneasy gut feeling I had about this game, I gave it a chance. I pre-ordered it, paid full price for it, and spent over 100 hours on the main story and a couple of dozen on multiplayer. I remember making a short funny clip from a press interview, which raised some red flags for me. The obsession of the developers with verticality, exploration, relationships. Not exactly the quality of the story, which was the hallmark of Bioware. But despite those preoccupations of mine, I gave Mass Effect Andromeda a shot. And despite the dreadful animations, the numerous glitches, the bugs, the occasional crashes, the awful dialogue, the uninteresting characters, the repetitive mission structure, and indifferent antagonist, uh, multiple inconsistencies in the AI, the user interface, weird choices in the RPG progression. I still maintained the course. I still stayed the course. I wanted to prove to myself that I had done the right choice. And by God, I had voted with my wallet. I had supported my favorite developer. I had bought this game on day one, and I devoted my energy and my time as a gamer announcing my joy and my experiences to my fellow gamers in my own small social circle. Now, was I rewarded by this attitude? No. Me voting with my wallet did absolutely nothing. On the contrary, Mass Effect died, the studio behind it was shut down, and all of Bioware's efforts turned to the next big bet for the company, Anthem. Now, Anthem was supposed to bring out Bioware's big guns, the A team, not the Pee Wee League, but the creme de la creme, the developers that worked for 6 years. They filled us with promises of an epic sci-fi story coupled with a fantastic open world and a kick-ass looter shooter with heavy RPG elements. But what we ended up with in the end was probably one of the biggest AAA flops in recent gaming history. A game with so many bugs and glitches, so ridiculously long loading times, and so inadequately poor looting system, absolutely no player dialogue choices, no branching paths in the story. Instead, you had some of the bluntest and uninteresting NPCs ever created, a tragically fragmented and boring story, and to top it all off, a seemingly non-existent quality and assurance process, which causes new bugs to surface after each patch instead of actually fixing them. Of course, absolutely no mention of a substantial and rewarding, meaty single player experience. No, for heaven's sakes, we are in the age of PUBG, of Fortnite, Apex Legends, League of Legends. As a single player experience is just not economically feasible. Just give the brain dead zombie masses of players a myriad of useless cosmetics to burn their money on, and you are set to make millions. Hey, it's a trusted recipe. But you see, Bioware had stooped so low that they couldn't even make this shit right. Anthem is so fundamentally broken that nothing can save it at this point. But Anthem and Bioware is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just an example I pulled from my personal experience. The AAA industry is spiraling down into a path of games as a service, ephemeral, internet based, multiplayer games with thin or even non existent storylines, underdeveloped and cartoony characters, monetization in every corner, cosmetics, power ups, maps, DLCs up to your yin yang, and the substitution of a meaningful progression with a tedious grind, which is purposefully put in place and designed to incentivize microtransactions and cementing the pay to win philosophy in the gamers' minds. It doesn't matter where you put your money if you support your favorite developers, because the publishers, the marketing executives, the investors, the top brass, I don't know, the decision makers, the suits have always different plans. That's why Lucasfilm Studios were closed, and instead of a glorious Star Wars 1313, we got the disappointing Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2. That's why instead of getting a substantial single-player campaign in the latest Call of Duty, we just got another Battle Royale. And even if your favorite franchise prospers, what is it really that you get? For example, remember how Forza Motorsport used to break new ground in racing simulation? Nowadays, it seems to me that they have forsaken the sim racing community in favor of a mindless, open world Horizon series with repetitive design and unimaginative execution. How about the Assassin's Creed series, which is one of my favorites? Granted, they have rejuvenated their formula, they injected new, interesting RPG elements and stories into their games, but still, you can clearly see through the cracks that such vast open worlds can become tedious and hollow, leading to unnecessary grind in order to reach the final acts of the endgame. Another fatal example is the destruction of a whole genre, the basketball games, which I used to like very much. Remember how many basketball games we had back in the days of 8 and 16-bit computers and consoles, and even in the early 2000s with Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. Now there's only one, NBA 2K, which is admittedly very good, but every year it's the same story of small incremental changes. How about FIFA? Same thing here. Sports games are the worst example of AAA erosion. And even if you don't support them, there will always be a million of young and impressionable gamers who will choose this crap. And in this case, it's not even their fault. I mean, they just don't have any alternative. So if you're lucky, you may get a successful crowd-funded game like Pillars of Eternity, Wasteland 3, or Pathfinder Kingmaker. But even then, you might get screwed over, like in the case of Phoenix Point, the much-anticipated spiritual successor to XCOM, which is said to be exclusively distributed by Epic Store instead of Steam for at least 1 year. So that's why I believe, quote-unquote, voting with your wallet is really an illusion. It doesn't really matter. because your individual purchasing power cannot stop the avalanche of popular trends and corporate decisions. Even when we are blessed with independent projects, products of love for the game, and respect for the niche communities, again there is great uncertainty. Just remember what is happening with Star Citizen after 8 or more years of and hundreds of millions from faithful fans. We're still on alpha and we have no release date, no idea what the finished game will look like. We have diminished hopes of getting a Linux version, and there's always a looming fear of never getting even a small fraction of the promised features. I don't expect the AAA industry to save the day or listen to your individual preferences. The trend is towards digital only, licensed content with an expiration date, games that they don't really belong to you, but you just consume for a brief time, just long enough to keep you engaged until the next popular game hits the market. In this world of digital distribution, network-based and streamed content, the fate of the industry is sealed because the profits will come from exactly these types of games, games as a service. Console gaming will devolve into this model. On the side of PCs, however, there will always be the freedom to choose away from big publishers and cartels that control the mass market. There at least you will find independent creators and distribution outlets that respect the gamer, that offer quality games without DRM, with rich storylines and gameplay, both single and multiplayer experiences, without the plague of microtransactions, paywalls, and other nasty practices. The viability of these smaller developers is not guaranteed, but it's the only way forward. The other big haven is of course retro gaming, enjoying our standalone complete games and physical media that we own forever. Every year more and more new homebrew titles appear, remasters, revivals and reimaginings of old classics. Some better than others, but at least we have a choice there. And even if our original systems start to fail after decades of faithfully serving us, there will always be ingenious software and hardware emulation systems to pick up the slack, from Raspberry Pi to fantastic FPGA boards and dirt cheap older PCs. We can run our old games. So even if the entire world turns its back on you, if you start feeling this gaming industry isn't for you anymore, don't lose heart. There will always be like-minded people who share your passion, communities that give rise to new crowd-funded games worth your time, and developers who don't shoot themselves on the foot by turning against the interests of the loyal fans that supported this industry all those years. This is GalacticusX, and until next time, take care of yourselves and keep out of harm's way. Bye.